Distinguished guests, respected Mava sir and CSR, thanks a lot for this opportunity. I'm Gautam, representing Greenco here. I've been with oil and gas for more than 20 years actually, before I turned green, I should say, right? And it's been a very interesting journey, the whole energy transition. And because I come from oil and gas, it also helps me to put things in some perspective and not take very extreme positions in this. Especially after I joined the industry, I realized how much more difficult it is to do the transition, and it's very important for all of us, I guess, to keep that balanced perspective as we go on this journey. Like Rajesh sir was just mentioning, the kind of numbers that the world needs to achieve, even India needs to achieve, are just mind-boggling, right? So it's a huge opportunity for everyone, I think for all the traditional oil companies as well. I'll try to be very Greenco agnostic. I'll try and speak some concepts here. But excuse me if I have to sometimes speak about what we're doing, just to put things in perspective. Yeah. Okay, so just to set the stage and the background, again, thanks sir for that. Really, Rajesh sir had just explained the Panchamrita concepts that the Prime Minister had espoused for India at COP26. We were also there at COP26. Right? These are not yet NDCs, but they are going to be converted into India's NDCs, right? So COP27 is in Sharma el-Sheikh in Egypt. By then, all the details will be worked out, and then we'll be knowing exactly what India's NDCs are going to be. But basically, these are going to convert into that. Now, I would just like to draw your attention. The bottom objectives were pretty clearly espoused. But the top part is what we are really worried about, right? In spite of everything that the world has pledged, we are still looking at a 2.1 to 2.3 degrees temperature increase globally. Now, we really have to execute these pledges into actions, right? So, the Paris Agreement, I would say ambition, I wouldn't call it objective, Paris Agreement ambition is still 1.5 degrees. So really to hit 1.5 degrees, then whatever all these big numbers are have to be upped by another scale of magnitude, right? So that just tells us, the kind of challenge we all have to live up to, right? Now, so interesting. So there's absorption of greenhouse gases, and then there is the actual removal of those gases. So what I'm going to focus on are areas where the world is going to get challenged and the world is working on, including my company now, on how are we removing these greenhouse gases, right? So one of those is two main concepts that I'll discuss today are long duration, what we call LDESS in the industry, long duration energy storage. I'm sure you've all been reading from the Ministry of MNRE. The Honorable Minister had recently declared to the media that a draft policy has been circulated to the industry and it's going to become a policy soon. And I'll explain to you why long duration energy storage it's a little technical subject, but it's extremely critical for the green, for the energy transition to happen. And of course, the second one is a green hydrogen ecosystem, right, which I'm sure you've been hearing to from today all morning, right? Okay. But at the same time, like I said, we all need to be cognizant of the fact that this is a great opportunity. It's not just an opportunity to save the planet, but it's also a great business opportunity. Like if you see the critical industries over the last, say, 200-300 years, right? So coal plus steel, wrought iron, was the first big industrial revolution, right? And then the second one was oil plus steel, right? And then the third one, of course, was the whole semiconductor industry with silicon plus electricity, right? Now the next big one is going to be zero carbon plus energy storage. These two combined together, and as you see, the durations are shrinking. That just tells you the pace at which world's technologies are moving, right? What would be something you do and you could be assured of for 50, 100 years of business is not valid anymore. You've got to reinvent yourself every 20 years of late. So that's the kind of challenge the energy industry is not used to. And that's something we are going to be facing as we go ahead, right? Yeah. Okay. So other than the long duration energy storage, of course, the other big one that we talked of is the green hydrogen. Now, green hydrogen in an Indian context is going to give multiple solutions, right? I mean, that's just a picture I used to explain to my daughters what I'm doing leaving oil and gas. I found it a very nice pictorial representation. So everything from agriculture, where you can substitute fossil fuel based fertilizer industry, which is entirely dependent on fossil fuels today, whether it's ammonia or urea or DAP or whatever you call phosphate fertilizers, they are all derived from fossil fuels, can be replaced with green hydrogen. A bunch of industry feedstock, there's a lot of hydrogen that all our refiner friends here use to clean the crude in refineries today, right? That can be replaced by hydrogen. The cement and steel industry, the more hard to abate sectors, they can be replaced by green hydrogen. And hydrogen itself can be used as an energy carrier, right? Whether it's in marine fuels or many other such industries. Yeah. So now, not only is it a great opportunity for those who see the opportunity, but if you fail to see the opportunity, you're going to be left behind because the world is moving ahead. You really cannot stop this. So today, if you see every single industrial organization or a group or a business group is making their own pledges irrespective of the government pledges, right? For example, all the German automakers, they've all made pledges that for example, they've all stopped investing in R&D for IC engines now. All their R&D has moved to EVs and hydrogen fuel cells or whatever vehicles. They've all taken net zero targets between 2030 and 35, right? I mean, for example, Volvo said no more steel. They will not use any aluminium in their processes. That's the bulk of the metal that they use. That is not 100% net zero aluminium, right? So they made pledges like this, which is India being a major exporter of metals to these countries cannot really escape that environment. So we'll have to up our ante. And how is this going to be affected? They are also coming out with something we call a CBAM, right? CBAM is Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, right? So for every product that you bring into Europe, they will calculate the footprint of that product in terms of carbon that it emits, right? And then they go to put a tax on you, right? Just for you to get a feel today, and that tax is going to be related to what you call EU ETS, European Union Emission Trading System. That's a live system today where all European companies, governments are all subject to where the price of carbon dioxide is discovered. Today that price is $74. If you just go to Google, you can actually check. So everyone's given a target of how much they can emit. Anyone who is emitting above their emission levels have to buy these credits. And that's $74 today, expected to go up to $200 by 2030. Most conservative estimates are saying $100, right? So for example, a fertilizer company in Europe, if they're getting ammonia, if they're making ammonia, normally each ton of ammonia emits 2 tons of carbon dioxide. So they're going to be hit with a penalty of $200 of carbon, right? So either they import green ammonia and they save that penalty, or they buy the credit from someone who imports it, right? So that's the kind of economy that's coming. And just on India, I think there's going to be a $1 billion plus export loss to India if you don't comply with these mechanisms, right? So all industries which are not going to be mandated by law in India, but will still have to follow this path. So whether it's, and that's why we are actually talking to a lot of people today in Vedanta or Hindalco or, Arcelor, because they're all under this pressure to comply with as we go ahead, right? Okay, so what are the solutions we are looking at, right? So broad decarbonization strategy. I mean, this is our strategy, but this is typically the strategy for the whole industry, right? Okay. The low-hanging fruit were pure electricity generation, right? You just generate solar and wind, some small hydro also. India has RE status. You generate that power. It's a clean, non-fossil fuel, non-carbon emitting power, and you use this power, right? India really started this journey big time from 2010 onwards, right? Right? And it's quite remarkable that, today we have almost 100 gigawatts of installed capacity of solar and wind, starting from almost nothing a decade ago. So we should be quite proud of our achievement. But then when you put it into the context that you need you know, 8,000 gigawatts of this in the next 40 years. That's quite a challenge, right? Now, and I'll explain to you in the next slide why this is such a big challenge. The next one, therefore, is to move from pure electricity generation to what you call as intelligent energy. Renewable energy that you want in whatever form you want, whenever you want. Now, that doesn't exist today. Today, it's a very, I would say, not a usual industry where, you know, the supplier has to meet the client's demands. Today, the client is having to meet the supplier's production, because you don't get RE when you want, right? RE comes when it wants to come, right? But industries and households or cities, they don't work like this. They have their own consumption patterns. So what we need is some form of intelligent energy where green energy meets the consumer's profile, right? And then moving on from there, what you need is the green molecule, right? That's, you know, using this intelligent energy, how can you make a green molecule? Whether it's methanol, whether it's ethanol, whether it's ammonia, whatever is made from fossil fuel, can we then make it from a complete, instead of a gray molecule, can we make it from a green electron? That's the shift that we need to do, yeah? Okay. So I would just take a little, you know, for the more technically minded and keen people, this is a very small illustration of why this is such a big problem. So you see the blue curve there on a 24-hour schedule, that's how solar power comes. So when someone tells you I have 100 megawatt solar, right, essentially he only gets 100 multiplied by 24 multiplied by 21% energy. It only comes literally between afternoon 11 and 4. Right? And then it tapers off at the edges, and so you essentially get 25% what the industry calls CUF or PLF, right? Plant load factor. Then, no, that's not good enough, right? That's simply not good enough. So if someone wants something like that black horizontal line on the top you see, suppose I want 100 megawatts constant, if you put 100 megawatts of solar, you only get 25 average. Now, either you put a very huge sum where that bottom part matches that 100, then you are completely inefficient. You are putting 1000 megawatts of solar to get 100 megawatts. It's not going to work, right? So what people are doing now, we're also doing something that like the green line. You mix solar and wind, right? So wind comes typically in the night, you know, late afternoon and night are the highest wind sources generation. So you kind of taper it down to a more levelized manner, but still that would only give you a combined CUF or load factor of around 50% in most parts of India. The best combinations you get is 50%. And it comes in a very intermittent manner, right? In an infirm manner, right? So that's, the industry doesn't like it. See, today India consumes around 140 gigawatts of base load and 180 gigawatts of, you know, energy at peak loads, right? Okay. Out of this, 70 gigawatts is industry. And that's why industry doesn't like this. Industry needs steady power. Industry cannot deal with, you know, when you're operating a smelter or a refinery, they cannot afford a few second shutdowns. It's going to cost them crores. So they need very firm, steady power. And unless you decarbonize industry, then how do you actually achieve significant decarbonization? You can't. So that's why what we need to do is why this holy grail of power storage, renewable storage is such an important aspect is how do you bring that green curve up to that black curve, right? Where you can actually say, I'll give you 100 megawatts of steady curve 24 hours a day when you ask me for that, right? So that's why battery storage or whatever storage forms become very, very, very important, right? So at Greenco, what we have done, we have actually, you know, looked all around the world and we realized the problem though is, you know, the only commercially viable technology today in battery storage is lithium, right? And lithium is finitely available, again, right? Very few geographies dominate lithium. It's only Chile, China and Australia. In fact, 80% of lithium processing is only in China. They have completely captured that space, right? So even if Chile produces lithium, it goes to China to get processed, right? So you're again competing for a very finitely available resource, and you're also competing with EV batteries. And EV typically can pay, when you're buying a car, you don't mind paying a little more. But a grid level solution for supplying power to homes and industries is very expensive. So that's why today, typically, per megawatt of storage facility with lithium, it's costing $2.2 to $2.4 million, right? So that's why what we did at Greenco, we went back to some very age-old technology called pumped hydro storage. Very simple technology. It's been existing for more than 100 years, right? It's just, it was primarily used in US and Europe to balance nuclear power plants, because nuclear power comes steady all the time, but the demand is not there all the time. So when there is no demand, what they would do is take the excess nuclear power, store it in a water reservoir, right? And when there is a demand, they would pump it down and create energy, right? Now, the problem is even this costs $2 million per megawatt capex, right? What we have done though is what Indians are very good at. One, we have increased the scale to a gigawatt scale. If you do it at 100 megawatt scale, it doesn't work out. Second, we have taken it off stream. We have taken it off the rivers. If you build it on river, you got to design it like a dam. And dam, you design it for a once in a 100-year event, and that makes it very expensive. So we are building this project in a way called off stream. So we call them off stream closed loop pump storage projects. And we are able to do it at a 65% cheaper cost than anywhere in the world today, right? So it's a concept that really we started in India. We are building it at 1.2 gigawatt into 10-hour capacity. The first tenders for these came out last year from Solar Energy Corporation of India, and we won most of it till now, right? And we are delivering power from this from next year. But each is like $1 billion capex. They are expensive. And it's infra, so there's always challenges with infra in India. But it really, we believe, is a solution for the next decade at least, until a really viable battery tech comes across into India, right? So once that comes, I think that will change, right? And so that's what we are doing. We are actually building 3 of these in Andhra, Karnataka, and Madhya Pradesh as we speak. Our plan, we have actually sites identified for 7 of these across the country, right? So that's what we are doing. So very simple concept. So as you see in the daytime, if you need 100 megawatts, we put 400 megawatts solar. All the excess energy, we pump it to an upper reservoir, right? And those turbines, they also act as reversible pumps. So as they act as pumps in the daytime, pump the water up. In the night time, as you see the sun setting and there's no energy, we pump the water down and give power, right? Yeah. So it's very interesting. If anyone happens to be anywhere in southern part of Andhra Pradesh, feel free to go and visit it. It's a very beautiful project going on. We're almost half done with the first one, so should be delivering from next year, right? So what does that? And what we are doing with these projects is what we are also creating something called a energy cloud, just like the internet cloud, right? We're building 3 or 4 of these projects, mixing it all up digitally. You cannot manage this manually like the old days, load dispatch center, someone sitting there and saying how much here, how much there. You cannot do it like this. So we are actually putting it all together on a digital platform, completely driven by artificial intelligence. So you have 10 customers from this energy cloud who wants power at different profiles, and then you match this from this energy cloud and dispatch, right? So that's the kind of intelligent energy solutions that green intelligent energy solutions that we need to really help decarbonize. Now, why is that important? Because that is what is going to drive the right-hand side of that slide, the scope 2 emission reduction, the power solutions, and the scope 1 reductions, which is industrial energy solution reduction. So I'm sure you're all aware of the scope 1 and scope 2 reductions, right? So by being able to give continuous green power, we reduce scope 2 emissions. And with supply of continuous green power, we can now go to a process plant and create a green molecule, basically, right? So that's what we use electrolysis to create green hydrogen, and then you make green ammonia. So that could be one place. Then you do some carbon capture from existing carbon sources, combine it with this green hydrogen, and you can create either methanol or ethanol or various other green products that we envision will happen definitely in the future, right? Okay. Again, well, that's the architecture we just spoke about. Various applications like we spoke, right? There's a little difference though between the Indian ecosystem and the European ecosystem, right? And I'll come to that. India is really blessed that way, and that's why, right from Honorable Prime Minister, they believe this is an opportunity of a lifetime for India, right? Okay, if you go to Europe, for example, there's no land. There's really no land, right? Land is at a premium. So doing large scale, sun is at a premium, land is at a premium. We had one of, I think I went to visit some of the German Siemens Gamesa and people in Germany. Many people sue developers there saying, the wind turbine in front of my house looks bad, right? And they actually had to shut down the whole place because, it's not allowed. So that's why they have chosen offshore wind. And offshore wind today is 3 times more expensive to evacuate power, right? Yeah, we don't have that problem in India. They're not blessed with sun, unlike maybe Spain and parts of Portugal have sun, but most of Europe doesn't have sun. So the kind of architecture and solutions they are looking for are very different from what we are looking for. That's why the government of India is focused on feedstock for refineries and fertilizer plants in India, whereas in Europe, they are more looking at replacing marine fuel. They are looking at hydrogen as a form of blending into their natural gas networks, right? So different applications, different places, and that's how this new energy industry will develop, right? It's going to be very, very location dependent as well. Yeah. Okay. Now, obviously, this is on everyone's mind. Green hydrogen is not cheap, at least at this point of time. Yeah. There is the cost of equipment, the electrolyzers, the rest of the balance of plant equipment. Then there is a cost of power. Now, a lot of people talk about cost of electrolyzers, but I just wanted to take this opportunity to explain that really what drives a kilo of green hydrogen is green power, right? Electrolyzers can decrease their cost by 80%. It will move the needle. I won't say it won't move the needle, but in most architectures today in the world, only 25% is actually capex cost of the electrolyzer plant. 75% is green power, right? And to bring down the cost of green power, and India is already, you're all seeing Indian bids are going at 2.2 rupees for solar and 2.7 rupees, 2.8 rupees for wind. The problem is, one, the storage solution is still expensive, right? You got to add the cost of storage, right? Second, even at 2.2, 2.3, or let's say average 3 rupees cost of power, right? You need 200 rupees of just power into a green hydrogen. That's taking the cost close to $3 just for the power side of it, right? And then everything else comes. So what we think is, at a scale today, if you do large scale projects in India, right, with the right architecture, without having to put up excess electrolyzer capacity, if you have a right storage solution, right, you can hit the $4 mark in hydrogen, right, immediately. But then the most important the most important thing that has to happen in all this ecosystem is the cost of capital. See, India's cost of capital rupees is 9 rupees, or 9%. Dollar is still 4.5, right? Saudi, for example, has cost of capital of 0.75%, right? That's why they can deliver 1 cent power, right? That 1 cent power is what drives this, $1.50 hydrogen or $2 hydrogen. So that is a very important aspect, and this is what we have repeatedly said in all our communication, and to whether it's Niti Aayog or the ministries, right? So cost of capital, I think, is something that the government is very cognizant of, very aware of, and as that comes down, I think this whole curve will come down, and we are hoping that at the current prices of gas that we are seeing, if you can get to $1 hydrogen in the future, great, but we don't need to. Even if you can get to $2.50, I think that will beat the cost of gas hydrogen today, right? If gas continues staying at the price. See, that's another interesting aspect, right? Today, there is 2 stresses on gas. One, the actual investment into upstream industry, and this is where I always say this is not right. People have to invest in upstream, otherwise this is going to just go out of control, right? So actual upstream investment in gas. Second, gas is also replacing coal. So we were speaking to a German utility maker. He's shutting down 4 coal plants and converting them into gas plants. So the demand for gas is going to be exponential, because everyone is looking at gas as a transitory fuel, right, for the next 2 decades at least. So So gas price is not going to come down. So I think if India can get green hydrogen down to $2.50, I think that, and that is very, very possible, right? I think that will be like a revolution in the Indian energy industry. If we can go down further, that's great. I mean, that's fantastic, right? But this is what we always say, right? For that to happen, power has to come down. Continuous power has to come to 2 cents. Now, if India can get continuous power at 2 cents, a lot more revolutions will happen. The whole industrial manufacturing, why is India not good for manufacturing is because power is so expensive. So if power comes at 2 cents, then so many more things can happen in the country, right? So hopefully with all the investments, including the big groups like Reliance and Adani are making in creating the whole ecosystem right from manufacturing the solar panels upwards, hopefully we'll get there, right? And that will create this revolution that can change India. Yeah? And like I said, we have fantastic advantages as a country, right? We have a very diversified resource base. Right? Unlike, we can have great solar and wind in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh and Karnataka, right? And you can have it in different places in the rest of the country. Now, to combine these sources, we have an outstanding grid. Sometimes it's fantastic to come late to the party. Indian government has done an exemplary job with our grid, right? I mean, I think we've spent like $40 billion on the grid in the last decades. Our grid is better than Australia or US or so-called developed countries, right? So we can take energy from anywhere and move it across anywhere, right? Yeah. No one fabricates things cheaper than us, right? So people still, if you're talking of $100 in an electrolyzer plant today, people forget only $45 is actual electrolyzer. $55 is balance of plant. The transformers, rectifiers, gas separators, purifiers. Those, India can do it at 60% cheaper than anyone in the world at the best quality, right? We have a very well laid out regulations and norms in the electricity industry. And with the fantastic coastline we have huge infrastructure, unfortunately for importing. We can turn that around and export, right? So I think, with that, I think we are very well placed. There are very good reasons why we are very well placed. It's not just a wish list. Fantastic resources, fantastic human resource as well. Entrepreneurship, in the whole RE generation, in the whole RE economy around India, right? Like companies like ours or Renew, 10 years ago we didn't exist. Today we have capacity of 7.5 gigawatts operational, and we are building another 15 gigawatt. So I think this is going to be a very exciting space, and I'm sure with the major energy companies of India also planning to enter this, together we can make this happen in the country. Yeah, thank you. I know we are controlled by discoms quite a bit, right, in the country, but I think
regulatories are there, so I think it will be difficult.
Yeah, so I think that's
at present
that's something for the policymakers to think about. But one thing that's good that's happening, so like an intermediary step, is SECI aggregating demand and creating supply to meet that demand. In one way, it's kind of doing it, but you still got to buy from the state discom. The other good part is for captive consumers, like I said, 40% of India power is captive consumers. For them, they don't have this restriction. So just like they have a captive coal plant today they can buy from, they can invest a small part in a captive generation plant, and they can, a plant in Orissa can buy wheel power from Rajasthan. And the government has given free wheeling charges, so they don't have to pay a penny.